This video is your quick start guide to building maps with Mapbox. I'm going to take you through why you should even use Mapbox, some of the key features that come with it, and we'll put it together building a custom map for a drone company. We're going to design that map with AI, and we're going to build it out together in Cursor AI. Mapbox is really the premium mapping platform across web and mobile that comes with a ton of features, and it's got a really robust ecosystem. Your base map, but also navigation. You can create your own custom tile sets. It comes with search integrated, AI tools, and even real-time APIs for things like traffic updates if you're doing navigation. This makes Mapbox a favorite for enterprise companies like CNN, TripAdvisor, and Instacart. Now let's take a look at some of the features of Mapbox GLJS, which is Mapbox's solution for web mapping. Firstly, there's the map canvas. This is basically a fully up-to-date interactive map of the globe. It can be dragged, zoomed, we can style it with a dark mode, light mode, or even satellite imagery. There's lots of options there. We have layers like streets, water, place names, and these are all separate layers so we can toggle them on and off and even style them. We can add our own layers to the map to create polygons and clickable areas on top of the map canvas. To add markers to the map, you just need a dataset with latitude and longitude. We can create our own HTML element, style it, and use that as our marker. The markers are already interactive, so hovering or clicking on a marker, we can trigger our own functionality with that. Markers come with native pop-ups that can be positioned around that marker. We can even create animations for active markers, which can be a really nice touch as well. Now this is just scratching the surface of Mapbox GLJS, but from what I've talked about already, you can create a pretty cool interactive map experience. So let's dive into that. We're going to be building an interactive fleet map for Skyrunner, a drone transport startup in London. To get started, I recommend literally just drawing your map. You can take a picture of this map that you've drawn and feed it to your design AI. I personally like aura.build. It's a really great design tool that's connected to Gemini. Basically, you can use this to create your final design for your map just with prompts. Now, as someone with a design background, I took the design from Aura into Figma to just make a few adjustments. And I was also making components because it's going to become really important to give screenshots of UI components to feed to our AI development tool so it can build them accurately. Right here, I've organized them into, some marker states. I've organized the fleet table card, the drone card, and the markers, and also the map style. Now that the map is designed, we can move into development and build this out in Cursor. Cursor is my personal preference for AI-driven development, but you can use whatever IDE you want that has AI agents. Now, step one when building a project is to scaffold your project. This is basically you run a command like npm create vite at latest, and it will scaffold the basic structure of a standard application, right? And that's our template, that's our starting point for building. Optionally, you can initialize Git and connect your repository to GitHub. And every time we create a feature, we're going to use a feature branch and build it there safely, making commits to GitHub. If you're just vibe coding for fun, don't worry about this. But if you are building with other developers or a part of a team, you want to create your GitHub repository. And to manage my commits and my branches, I love Gitkraken. I love its visual interface of showing my branches and allows me to commit everything in a very visual interface. Let's start with our first feature, which is just getting the Mapbox canvas rendering. If you haven't already, make an account on Mapbox and just save your public token to a .env file. This allows us to basically render the map. It is essential. You don't have to understand env files because you can just ask your AI, but just save it somewhere in your code base or paste it directly in. Quick note, the default public token is just good for testing, but when you're building a production application, you want to basically restrict your token to your domain so that it can't be misused by other people. Switch to plan mode and describe your map layout, highlighting that it's a React map, and then reference your env file for the Mapbox token. Then you can basically create this plan to initialize the map. Check the plan once it's finished to see if it's looking all good, and then you can press build. If you get any errors from the UI, you can just screenshot this and give it back to Claude, and it finds the issue quite quickly. In my case, one of the pathways was wrong, but again, this was very easily solved by Claude. And once I finished testing this feature, it's looking good. I then push that branch to GitHub and I merge it into my main branch. As we do this, we're going to get a nice sort of story of our app as it comes together feature by feature. Next up is our drone dataset. We want to render a bunch of drones on our map, and that data's got to come from somewhere. In a production application, it's probably coming from some API somewhere, But what I've done for this purpose is just generated a data file with a bunch of placeholder data for our drones. Now we have our data set, let's render our drones as custom markers. A cool tip here is to color code your markers. In this case, I'm going to have green markers for drones that are on standby, blue for ones that are actively delivering. Anytime a drone's battery is lower than 25%, the marker will get basically a color of orange to indicate that. I added the screenshot of my markers and outlined the feature with context from the main plan. And honestly, Claude nailed it on the first time. You can see the markers rendering here. Now let's talk about a really important feature, our selected drone. We want a way to trigger that card to come in when a drone is selected, but we need a way to manage our state of the selected drone throughout our app. In React, the way that we do this is with the useState hook. And once we set this up, we know that we can play an animation on the active marker. We can display the right card for the active marker with its data. Once a marker becomes active, we can center it on the map. As you can see, once we have the active drone state ready, we're able to build out a bunch of our other features. Luckily, Claude understands React state extremely well. So basically just tell it how you want it to behave and Claude will do the rest for you. Now let's give our drones some custom pop-ups. When we hover on a map marker, which is a drone, we want to add this little pop-up above it like this that just displays its name. Mapbox pop-ups come with default styling, as we know. So in this prompt, you need to be really sure to give it context that it needs to remove all of the default styling on the Mapbox pop-up. Claude nailed this on the first time for me, so that's really good. And you also want to paste in a screenshot with your marker and then the pop-up hovering above it. This is going to give that, nice context of like what this should look like so it can build it out correctly. You can see why it's really nice to have this in Figma where we can copy and paste specific UI elements to build those components with more accuracy. Next, we have our bottom right-hand corner of the screen where that card is going to come in. Let's build out that card component now. For little UI components like this, make sure you give the first screenshot to Claude of the actual component itself, but then always follow up with a second screenshot of the UI, like where this component should appear in the UI. That way Claude knows what to build, but also where to put it. Even though I did this, it was rendering quite weirdly in the center of the map like this. And this is where I activated debug mode. With debug mode, we can basically test our app with Claude in the browser and it can debug it for us. Turns out the component was put inside the map in the wrong place. As soon as we made it a fixed card outside the map, this solved all our layout issues. Moving on to our next component, our fleet table. It's really cool to have a table view for your apps because it just offers two ways to interact with the data. You have the map data, but you also have it in this kind of table and list view, which is a really good user experience. And the fleet table is a more complex piece of UI because it has a collapsed and expanded state and it needs to be connected to the map. When building a more advanced feature like this or more advanced component, here's a quick tip when you're using AI. Plan the feature using your more expensive, deeper thinking models, for example, Claude Opus. This way it can spot edge cases and kind of give a more robust plan. But when you build out, you want to use that slightly cheaper plan. Maybe that's Claude Sonnet, where it's still a good model, but it's not quite as expensive as the one that made the plan. And this is a way that you can really save using up all of your credit. Opus was smart enough to really connect the table interactions with the map. So now when a user hovers on a row, it activates the pop-up, and when a row is clicked, that drone now becomes selected. So as you can see, we are using state to basically connect two different parts of our app to one single source of truth. We want the selected drone to be centered on the map. So I created this animation where the centered drone gets centered on the map with the fly to, and then there's a slight zoom to kind of accentuate that there's been an interaction here. Then I applied this really nice pulse animation that I got from back in Aura Design, actually prototyped this for me. All I did was copy the CSS that created this animation into Claude and it activated it for me immediately. And we have a really nice demo of a Mapbox GLJS map here. So if you guys want to see more content from me about mapping, Mapbox, building apps in AI, please leave a comment, like and subscribe, and I'll be more than happy to make some more videos on this topic. I'll catch you guys in the next video. See you later. Ciao.